129. The Gate and the Key. When Ryan gazed into the violet abyss, the abyss looked back. As he fell down into a tunnel of violet light, the time traveler witnessed distant echoes form around him. Images flashed in his mind like pictures, followed by sound. He relived memories, some of them his own, but not all. Ryan remembered the fateful day he and Len found their elixirs, and the moment when it all began. For a moment, he was Len, drinking an elixir in a desperate attempt to heal a sick father. The next instant, he was a woman with a dream, murdered by a heartless man. He lived through Julie Costa's murder, both as the victim and the perpetrator. He became a living son, fighting a final battle for the world's sake against a mad genius' endless armies. He remembered the plushie's creation, his rebirth in Monaco, and his first perfect run. He watched Bloodstream's final defeat through half a dozen pairs of eyes, gaining a broader perspective. He became a priest eager to defend the world in the name of God, and the sociopathic scientist who drove him mad. Ryan became all of these people and more, as he lived through these fragments of the past. The endless tapestry of time appeared before the wanderer, offering him greater insight and knowledge. Through it all, Ryan's purple doppelganger followed after him like a shadow, a reflection. It floated ever closer to the original, but never fused with him. Two old friends had reunited, but now was not yet the time to become one. There was still one task left to do. "I'm with you," the double whispered with Ryan's own voice. His elixir magenta inhabited this specter, always standing by its human partner's side. "Let's kick his ass." Ryan lightly landed on his feet and found a confused Augustus waiting for him. To the courier, the purple world appeared as a grassless plain without limits, the purple ground as smooth as a polished mirror. The skies were a lighter shade of violet, a beautiful void without clouds, without wind. Countless spheres floated above Ryan's head, linked by beautiful, dazzling auroras of violet flux. The strange bubbles reflected pictures of alien worlds defying understanding, of lands ruled by dinosaurs, of human and alien cities. Ryan couldn't count them all, and each of them showed something different. Another place, another time. Doors, the courier realized. Gates to other worlds beyond count, portals to different pasts, alternate presents, and possible futures. Ryan couldn't help but take a moment to marvel at this place's alien beauty, at this universe of limitless possibilities. The sight deeply humbled him, as he truly began to fathom how vast the multiverse was, and how small he looked in comparison. What is this place? The red light had gone out of Augustus, leaving nothing but a cracked statue of ivory. His eyes glared at Ryan, blind to this place's majesty. "What have you done?" "I brought you to my home turf," the courier replied, taking a step forward. His armor suddenly seemed no heavier than air, and his violet elixir walked after him like his shadow. "This ends here." "It will." Augustus raised his hand, trying to smite Ryan with divine lightning. But no electricity erupted from his fingers, to his surprise. Mob Zeus couldn't draw energy from the red world here. Not without the right permission. Unlike Ryan, he was nothing more than an intruder, an unwelcome guest in a world that served as the time traveler's second home. "This is a crossroads, but you can't break the lock," Ryan said, darkness spreading across his skin. While Black flux erupted from his heart, his very soul, burning off the Saturn armor and shrouding his entire body in a cloak of darkness. Ryan became a shadow with a purple reflection, a human-shaped black hole. A living void. The Saturn armor had never been more than an amplifier, helping Ryan focus his own personal connection to the black world. But here, in this place? In this crossroads between all of space and time? I am the gate, and the key. Ryan could draw upon as much black flux as he wished. Half his vision turned dark, as the paradoxical energies consumed his wounded left eye. The courier crossed the distance with his adversary in an instant, space dissolving between them as if it no longer existed. The surprised Augustus instinctively raised his left arm to protect his head, and Ryan punched it with a fist of solid darkness. His shadowy fingers cut through the adamantine like butter. Augustus' eyes widened in shock, as his forearm fell on the purple ground and left a stump behind. His flesh and blood had calcified, turning as solid and indestructible as the skin outside. But Lightning Butt's nerves still worked correctly, if his roar of pain was of any indication. He clutched the stump with his remaining hand, his eyes widening in rage and horror. Ryan would have rejoiced if his current state didn't hurt him as much as Augustus. He felt his skin peel away, devoured by the black flux. His legs, his arms, started to flicker like shade in the sunlight. If he kept this up, he would either ascend as a living shadow or cease to exist. "Give up," the courier ordered Augustus. He didn't listen. "I was chosen." Madness and hubris overwhelmed Augustus, his fear of death giving way to a single-minded, murderous rage. Unable to strike Ryan down with lightning, he raised his right fist in a haymaker motion. Lightning Butt's eyes were devoid of all rational thoughts, his hatred had overwhelmed his survival instinct. His mind simply couldn't accept defeat. "I was chosen by fate." Ryan raised a hand, his purple double following his movement, and shattered Augustus' right arm at the elbow with a swift strike. The severed arm joined its twin on the purple floor, and the pain brought Lightning Butt to his knees. He had lost the same hands he once smashed Julie Costa's head with. Call it karma. While his purple double glanced at the portals above them, Ryan looked down at his foe. Without the electrical halo surrounding him, Augustus' wrinkles, whether natural ones or cracks from the battle, were exposed for all to see. The perfect Olympian statue had degraded, his smooth outer layers now resembling a broken windshield. Though he shed no blood, there was hardly a spot in the mob boss body without a rift, a hand-shaped crater, or exposed metallic flesh. Ryan glanced at this all-powerful genome's face, and it looked so old, so scared beneath the bluster. The face Augustus had struggled so hard to hide from the world wasn't that of a god, but of a feeble, bitter old man. One so afraid of his own death, that he had murdered thousands to stave it off. Beneath all the cruelty and the luster of divine power, Augustus was nothing but a small, petty miscreant, worthy only of contempt. "Give up!" Ryan shouted, his voice deepening as his throat flickered in and out of existence. But now that he had lost everything, pride was all Augustus had left. "A god does not surrender," he snarled. A true god was listening, and made its presence known. The portal bubbles dispersed, pushed away by an invisible cosmic force. The smooth ground beneath Ryan's feet undulated like a water pond's surface, and the flux auroras brightened. A humongous shadow covered Ryan and Augustus, making them raise their eyes at the alien skies. The violet ultimate one descended from the heavens above. Ryan had only caught a glimpse of the entity in the past, but now it revealed itself in its full, cosmic glory. The courier had vaguely mistaken it for an inverted pyramid, but on a closer look, it appeared far more complex. The geometric shape before him would have given a headache to Euclid, as layers upon layers of space folded in a bizarre triangular violet spiral. This shape, this geometrical form, couldn't exist on Earth. Ryan's own human mind couldn't fully process what he saw. It tried to fit the shape among other, more classical forms, to quantify the unquantifiable, and it failed. Millions of eyes covered this eldritch triangle, black orbs full of swirling galactic spirals, all-devouring black holes, nebulas, and cosmic phenomenons undiscovered by human astronomers. Each eye is a universe, Ryan realized. This thing was so colossal, that it hurt the courier's head just to look at it. Even the haughty Augustus seemed transfixed by the sight. The entity's eyes gazed at the mortals. A solar flare of violet flux swallowed them both, dissipating the shroud of darkness around Ryan. The multiversal light of the Ultimate One bathed the courier's naked body, stripping him of the pain, of his senses, and reason. The deity's will overwhelmed his own, and let him see through one of its eyes. The time traveler was brought back to a time before man, before life. He witnessed a nebula's matter condense while a star flared to life, planets forming out of space dust around the radiant celestial light. An asteroid impacted a rock of magma, the ejected stones gathering into a smaller pebble forever orbiting around its larger sister. The fires cooled, allowing for the emergence of continents, of an atmosphere of volatile gases, and of vast oceans. The planet cooled as bacteria colonized it. Algae populated the deep, and legged creatures dared to walk on land. Insects conquered the skies, then reptiles the ground, until another rock from the skies set them all ablaze. Mammals emerged from the ashes, growing larger and smarter. A primate mastered fire, and crafted tools to conquer the world. Lineages of humans evolved and became one, before splitting into countless tribes. Some raised pyramids, others temples. Kingdoms rose and fell, and two families walked down the road of time. One found its ultimate fruit in a man with a dream of violent conquest, another in a child that loved video games, both locked into a collision course. All leading up to this moment. This is a second to me. The Ultimate One's voice was unlike any sound Ryan had ever heard. It was the subtle song of undulating space, the symphony of time. It was beautiful beyond any description, and yet awe-inspiring. The voice of a true deity. When the divine union ended, Ryan's pain had vanished, and the black flux along with it. His skin felt fresh beneath the iron, and a fully repaired Saturn armor protected him. The eye blinded by Augustus could see again, perhaps even more clearly than it ever had. The Ultimate One had afforded no such courtesy to Augustus, who remained a broken, crippled thing. Lightning but had gone into shock, his eyes wide open, his arrogant defiance gone. You are not a god. He had seen the vision too, and the truth shattered him. You are nothing. Augustus' eyes looked down at the ground, his gaze empty and hollow. He had formed his entire personality, his sense of self, around the idea that he was a god among men, chosen by fate to rule and conquer. He had built his family, his world, around this primal delusion, violently lashing out at anything that could contradict it. But the Ultimate One had dispelled his armor of lies with the truth of his own insignificance, breaking him utterly. Something inside Augustus had shattered, and would never come back. The Ultimate One paid the defeated genome no more attention than a fly. Instead, its eyes set on Ryan, crushing the courier beneath the weight of its divine gaze. The courier's purple double knelt before the entity, the elixir submitting to the elder entity. Though he didn't go as far, Ryan bowed as deeply as he could. Even the irreverent courier knew that he was in the presence of a true deity, a transcendental existence as far above humans as they were from ants. An entity of unfathomable power, and utterly alien. You are the ultimate, Ryan began, but the entity cut him off. I am all of space and time. I am all that was, all that is, all that will ever be. I am everywhere and nowhere. I am that I am. So you control. Yes. And you already know what? I know everything you might ever say. Well, can you please pretend not to? The time traveler pleaded sheepishly. It's annoying to get cut off all the time. Violet flux instantly swirled before Ryan, and solidified into a solid shape. The entity it coalesced into shared the courier's height, and little else. The figure wore a purple robe seemingly woven from the fabric of space, a foaming mass of bubbles foaming from below. Ryan didn't see any face beneath the hood, only a vision of a night sky and swirling nebulae. The creature had no arms, nor any need for them. Are you more comfortable with this shape? The Ultimate One's newest avatar asked, its voice an echo of Ryan's own. For some reason, that incarnation spoke in the French language. It's better, the courier replied, and to his joy, the entity didn't interrupt him again. It probably knew what the human was about to say, but politely pretended not to. Ryan then glanced at Augustus, who kept looking at the ground in a vegetative state. What about him? He does not matter. The Ultimate One's avatar didn't even spare Augustus a glance as space lengthened between Ryan and the broken mob boss. Lightning but moved backward, until he vanished from sight. Come. Space bent, and a terrifying creature emerged from an angle at the edge of Ryan's vision. A horse-sized horror with white skin and hundreds of red eyes all over its body, with stunted tentacles as forelegs, and larger ones for hind legs. 2 antennas sprouted from its twisted, bulbous head like long porcelain ears. The plushie. Or rather, the entity that had hijacked it. Somehow, Ryan couldn't help but find it cute, in a grotesque way. The courier moved an armored hand at the monster's head, and scratched it behind the ears. Its tentacles wriggled in pleasure, its red eyes turning blue. Thanks, buddy, Ryan said, the eldritch horror answering with a sound that could pass for a strangled cat's cry. From the bottom of my heart. The eldritch calamity had given the time traveler many scares, but in the end, it had been a loyal friend since day one. Ryan could see it now. Was that always your true form? The courier asked, as the plushie wagged its tentacles. The creature's shadow had looked different a few loops ago. It is the form it chose, the Ultimate One said. The courier suddenly noticed that its voice, while echoing Ryan's own, lacked any emotional intonation. The creature mimicked human speech the way a parrot did, understanding the words, but not the music. It must return to its duties now. Ryan suddenly realized that the plushie's time on Earth had been the equivalent of a holiday. No wonder it had spent its time sowing mayhem and destruction. I have so many questions, Ryan confessed. I have answers, the Ultimate One replied. Thank you. Ryan doubted that many people could boast about receiving an audience from an outer god, or the closest thing to one. You've guided me for a while. First through Eugene Henry, then through chronoradio messages. First of all, I thank you for it. The deity didn't bother answering. It felt distant, physically present, but not there either. Was this predetermined? Ryan asked hesitantly. Did you make this moment inevitable? This time, the Ultimate One answered. I made this moment possible. You made it inevitable. Bubbles floated from beneath the entity's clothes and grew larger to the size of tennis balls. When Ryan examined them more closely, he noticed images appearing on their surface. These are paths you could have taken. The Ultimate One glanced at a bubble showing Ryan walking out of New Rome, but different. The courier's cashmere suit had turned into tattered rags, while his eyes had become blue and purple. This doppelganger's malevolent expression chilled the original Ryan to the bone, especially when he noticed birds and clouds frozen in time above New Rome's buildings. In this possibility, you make a gamble and take a second elixir, only to become the bane of your kind, the Ultimate One explained, while Ryan's purple double looked away in shame. As the clock stopper, you turn the human hive of New Rome into a snow globe, before moving on to ruin millions of lives. Is this happening right now? Ryan asked, horrified, while the plushie purred against his leg. In another reality? No, the Ultimate One answered to the courier's relief. As an observer, you are a space-time singularity. This is partly why your mate cannot predict you. The courier frowned behind his helmet. An observer? The Ultimate One ignored the question. Another bubble floated in front of Ryan, showing him and Livia engaged in a vicious gunfight over the burning ruins of Mount Augustus Villa. In this extinguished possibility, you never trust your current mate, and you start a war with her for control over your timeline. Each loop becomes worse than the last. Ryan gazed at this one for a while, before being distracted by another, showing the courier punching Augustus' chest and his hand coming out on the other side. In this one, you strike down her maker, the Ultimate One explained, and though she does not war with you, your bond is broken. You leave the New Rome human hive, and return to your wandering, alone. The plushie pointed at another bubble, which made Ryan raise an eyebrow. It showed the courier in bed, surrounded by naked women including Fortuna, Jasmine, Yuki, Nora, the vamp, Cancel, and Felix. Somehow, Felix was here too. Wait, is that the harem ending? Ryan asked with curiosity. In this timeline, you give up on forming meaningful bonds with your kindred, the Ultimate One explained. You live a jaded existence of meaningless sensations, dulling your heart's pain with physical pleasure. Ryan suddenly noticed Len and Livia's absence in this picture, illustrating the absence of anything deeper than mindless sex. I should have known it looked too good to be true, he said. The Ultimate One dispersed the bubbles with a thought. All of these are choices you could have made, or would have been forced upon you if you had wavered in your efforts. You discarded or extinguished these possibilities in the service of your perfect future. If this present moment takes place, human, it is because you struggled to make it happen. So I have free will, the courier asked, afraid of the answer. If multiple paths are possible, then events aren't predetermined? Free will does not work as most humans understand it, the Ultimate One explained. The timeline is in flux whenever a life form makes a choice. A cat is faced with a forked path. It can take left or right. In that brief moment, both possibilities coexist. Ryan wondered if that cat's name was Schrödinger, or maybe Eugene Henry. Until the cat chooses yes. After which, one possibility becomes the truth and is set in stone. History is written. Whenever you saved and turned back time, the ink was already dry. Humans had made their choice in a previous history, and they would make the same for all future ones unless interfered with by an outside force. This is the nature of causality. This is the nature of time. Ryan tried to grasp the implications. People like Augustus chose to do all their crimes, and the likes of Sunshine chose to help others. Time didn't invalidate their choice, but once the choice had been made, it couldn't change. So we humans have the freedom to choose, the human summarized, but not to change our mind? They could write their life story, but not change the first draft. The humans you met chose to become who they are, the Ultimate One confirmed. But they cannot choose to become someone else. Only those who exist outside causality have this privilege. Beings of the higher dimensions, like the messengers. Those touched by the rebellious black. And you. Ryan remembered his old meeting with Len, when he had likened himself to a Schrödinger's cat, existing in multiple states at once. Yet unlike this poor, suffering feline, the courier could decide which state he ended up with. So, I'm an exception? You wish to undo the chain of cause and effect to save another life, so I granted you the power of an observer. The ability to exist both in your lesser reality and my purple world, which transcends causality. As you can interfere with a life form's original choice, you alone decide which possibility, which potential reality, will become the true history. You alone can grant others second chances. You are the true master of your universe, human. I'm sorry, Ryan apologized, before looking at his armored hands. They had stopped existing a few minutes ago, alongside his left eye. It must have been hard work to clean up the time stream after me. I probably caused a lot of paradoxes over all these loops. It is my role to maintain the integrity of the time stream, the Ultimate One replied, before glancing at Ryan's left eye. Some of your body parts have been erased forever, so I replaced them with an earlier possibility of them still untouched by the black. A time transplant? Ryan asked. Nice loophole. I have grown efficient at filling the holes made by the black, though not perfect. This power is by definition uncontrollable. The unforeseen error in the great machinery of the universe. Though I do wonder what would have happened if I died of old age, and saved a few moments earlier, Ryan said. How would that have worked from your own point of view? Time would have repeated, until you achieved peace and enlightenment, the Ultimate One answered. Then you would have ascended to the purple world, and history would have carried on without you. Still, Ryan wondered how many cycles it would have taken, and he suddenly realized that the creature in front of him didn't understand how painful it would have been. The Ultimate One saw billions of years as a second. The courier suffering centuries in a time loop until he reached enlightenment wouldn't have been a blip on its radar. I have another question, the courier said hesitantly, unsure how the creature would react. But I don't want to sound ungrateful. The Ultimate One didn't answer, but it had probably foreseen what he was about to ask. Why didn't you help us more? Ryan glanced up at the enormous pyramid. You brought down the reptilians, according to Darkling, and you can control reality itself. Why didn't you prevent the alchemist from devastating our planet? The Ultimate One's cowled head glanced at Ryan's left foot. There is a bacteria crawling on your limb. It has an oval shape, with an orange cytoplasm and blue tentacles. It has been with you since you first set a foot on New Rome, eating dust on your skin. It has fought deadly wars against parasites for food, survived radiation and lightning. One day it will duplicate. Did you notice it? No, Ryan confessed. Mankind is a bacteria colony to me, the entity explained. I am big, and you are small. Unless I focus or you disturb the timeline, I do not even notice that your planet exists. Your reality is a sand grain among the endless desert which I oversee. A pigment in the tapestry of my dreams. If this avatar of mine above your head entered your universe, it would appear more than 100 billion of your solar masses, larger than the greatest of your black holes. I can hardly imagine it, the courier admitted. His human brain simply couldn't properly represent the size difference. So we are insignificant to the Ultimate Ones? Humans are no more important to me than the birds you eat for sustenance, or the ants you crush underfoot when you walk, it answered bluntly. My role is to maintain the march of time, and the boundaries of space for trillions of universes. Ryan's purple double chose this moment to speak up. Helping you mortals is our job. I do not care for mortal creatures, but I do not disregard them either, the Ultimate One added. This is why we Ultimate Ones created the messengers. To guide lesser life forms to a higher level of existence. Ryan frowned. Then why did you help me, out of everyone else? Was it because you needed me to destroy the alchemist's base? No, the alien deity replied flatly. Then why? Why did you help me reach my happy ending? Because I chose to. An aurora of violet flux flashed in the skies above, a shining thread linking time and space. You're like one of those guys who adopt wounded dogs they find on the road, Ryan realized. You won't go out of your way to help others proactively, but if someone in pain directly crosses your path and begs for help, sometimes you answer. The Ultimate One responded with silence. In the end, it was neither good nor evil as humans understood it. It was a cold, alien thing. But one capable of selfless compassion too. Ryan neither felt angry nor happy with these answers. He could only accept them. Though cold and distant, the Ultimate One was not malicious, and had helped one pitiful human achieve his good ending without expecting anything in return. For that, the courier would always be grateful. Ryan had one question left to ask. So how does this end? However you wish. The Ultimate One glanced at the plushy and magenta's avatar. You can stay here and become one of us. You will gain immense power and obligations. You will oversee time streams, travel across countless realities. Many options will open to you. You can also choose to enter the black world, if you seek greater freedom. Ryan considered the offer, but though an interesting one, it wasn't what he had fought for. He trailed. Or I could return to Earth. You could, the Ultimate One conceded. Ryan's thoughts turned to Livia and Len. There is something I never experienced, in all my years of wandering. Something I've striven to achieve for a very long time. For the first time in the entire conversation, the Ultimate One gazed at the human with what could pass for curiosity. What is it? It knew the answer, but didn't understand it. Living a happy life, Ryan answered, with friends who can remember me. The plushie's antennae lowered in disappointment, so the courier immediately reassured it. Don't get me wrong, I would gladly join this heaven and wander the cosmos with all of you, just not now. Not today. The Ultimate One remained silent for a moment, before reaching a decision. The door to ascension will remain open. If you ever decide to join us rather than turning back time, I will extirpate you from your timeline and welcome you in my realm. Otherwise, you will be free to walk into the black world. You have earned ascension, human, for learning to wield your power with wisdom. Now and forever. So. Ryan glanced at his purple double, and at the rabbit abomination he had strangely grown fond of. This is.
Goodbye.
No, Ryan, his copy said warmly, the plushie chirping in response. We are always with you, even if you cannot see us. Don't you understand? You are never alone. You will never be alone. And somehow, that was all Ryan had ever wanted. I will return you and your mate's maker to your timeline, the Ultimate One said. I will remove your innate connection to the black world too. The Black Ultimate One is careless in its generosity, and if allowed to grow further, the paradox within you will destabilize your reality. I suppose that's fair. The Black Ultimate One had granted Ryan this gift because he had wished to die, but now Ryan had learned to live. The Violet Ultimate's smaller avatar wordlessly collapsed into violet flux, its triangular self bathing Ryan with its eldritch light. The plushie hopped away with one last look sent at its old friend, while Magenta waved a hand at his double. Ryan returned the
goodbye
with a hand wave of his own, as he returned to his reality. A second later, the courier found himself standing on a French beach in his full Saturn armor regalia, right next to an armless and broken Augustus. Ryan looked up as a sun illuminated the night, one shaped like a man. Leo Hargraves glanced at the courier with silent relief, then at his old, broken nemesis. It said something about sunshine that he seemed to feel equal satisfaction and pity at the sight. I was worried for you, Leo admitted to Ryan. Didn't you hear? The time traveler smiled beneath his helmet. I'm immortal. It took them until dawn, the true dawn, to return to Italy together. Ryan carried the broken Augustus in his arms, Pieta style. By then, Ischia Island's Bliss factory was no more than burning rubble, and the courier's allies had evacuated to New Rome's old harbor with their captives. When Ryan and Sunshine reached the area, they found hundreds of people gathered along the docks, near transport bathyspheres. Fortuna and Felix had draped Narcinia in a warm blanket, while Mr. Wave entertained the traumatized child with tales. Len and the reformed meta-gang members escorted the shackled Olympians. A bound Venus walked after her husband, pushed forward by Jamie and Lanka. The two had made the right choice in the end. Vulcan and Wyvern arrived with other arrested Augusti lieutenants, not as enemies, but as uneasy allies. Enrique and other private security members escorted the gangsters towards Len's bathyspheres, which would transport them to an inescapable prison under the sea. Yet, in spite of their grim situation, the Olympians remained confident. They trusted their invincible leader would rain devastation upon those who dared to stand against him, and come to rescue his loyal minions. Ryan's appearance dashed their hopes. When the Augusti raised their eyes to watch him carry their defeated master in his arms, illuminated by Leo Hargrave's light, they could only respond with shock and denial. Wyvern's eyes almost bulged out of her skull, while Enrique gave Ryan a quiet, respectful nod. Len didn't hide her relief at seeing her adoptive brother alive, and even Bianca grinned ear to ear. Ryan tossed the defeated Augustus to the ground without a word. The broken warlord didn't rise up after hitting the pavement, his will shattered. And when they saw their invincible leader crushed so thoroughly, the remaining Olympians lost the will to fight. They lowered their heads in silent defeat, and walked to their fate. The war was over. 1:30, farewell, New Rome, ending. Livia had foreseen this moment, but never thought she would live to see it. The Augusti Villa's marble terrace was almost entirely silent as Enrique Manada signed the 50-page-long treaty. Wyvern and Leo Hargraves sat on his side of the table, while Vulcan and Uncle Neptune assisted Livia. Len Sabino completed the council, looking quite graceful in a summer dress, while Luigi kindly served cocktails and coffee. Eugene Henry, that spoiled cat, napped near the pool with his belly exposed. To Livia's eyes, the new chairman of Dynamis seemed to blur, as multiple possibilities aligned with his real self. 6 phantom hands followed his motions. All of them used different signatures, but they signed anyway. "It is done," Enrique said before closing the document, some other possibilities opening their mouths after the deed was done. "I thus officially announce the creation of the new European Republic." Dynamis had officially ceased to exist, as did the Augustes Empire. A new structure would rise from their ashes, greater and better than the sum of its parts. "The United States of Europe would have sounded better though," Leo Hargraves said. His presence still made Livia and her uncle uneasy, but he would soon serve as their go-between with the newborn republics of Bavaria and Denmark in the north. Though the seer would never quite get along with her mother's murderer, reconciliation was the order of the day. Gentle Len smiled sheepishly. "No, it wouldn't have. Sounded good, I mean." Livia hadn't seen a single possibility where she supported that alternate name. "I already contacted the French, and they have shown interest in joining us," the seer explained. By which she meant that they would inevitably join the new union, though they would grumble about it first. The French always complained, no matter the timeline. "I believe we could unify all of Western Europe within the next 2 years." "I never thought I would see that day," Uncle Neptune said, eyeing Hargraves and Manada warily. "Nor that we would end up sitting around the same table without a fight." "Things change," Enrique replied, before joining his hands. "Though I do wonder why the architect behind this conference didn't show up." Livia straightened up on her chair. "He left this morning, and he didn't tell me where." I couldn't find him either," Len admitted. "I thought he was with Fortuna and the others, but, no." Livia didn't need a reminder. Fortuna and her boyfriend intended to escort Alchemo to Denmark, so he might cure Matthias' mother of her neural illness. She knew he would succeed, but her best friend would remain abroad for months. Livia missed Fortuna's presence already. Felix and Narcinia intended to follow her too, the former as a prelude to joining the carnival full-time, the latter as part of her quest to find out more about her birth parents. "I still can't believe she chose to call herself Lucky Girl," Vulcan snickered. "That's the laziest superhero name I've heard yet, and that includes yours, Laura." "You have a point," her former partner took the remark in stride. "Wyvern was a Dynamis brand. We should think of something else." Vulcan squinted, as she grabbed a drink. I hoped we could form a duo again." Wyvern cleared her throat at Vulcan's hard gaze. "Or at least, give it a try." Vulcan wordlessly sipped her drink with a sour face. Wyvern awkwardly shifted on her seat, and Enrique spared her further discomfort. "I've agreed to your proposal about Rust Town's renovation, and to give Miss Sabino complete autonomy on that front, he informed Livia. The metagang members who submitted to treatment will join the program, and your donation will cover 70% of the budget. It might have come from drug money, but these funds will serve a higher cause now, Livia replied with a nod. Finally, she could use her father's ill-gotten resources to do good. Rust Town's denizens would only be the first to benefit from them. Livia intended to fully fund a think tank of geniuses to help rejuvenate the earth. The architect would get to build her self-sustaining cities, Dr. Tyranno's knowledge would be directed towards developing better healthcare, and Vulcan would equip a peacekeeping force to neutralize the genome warlords ravaging the countryside. Maybe in time they would introduce Mecran's safe elixir knockoffs and give everyone the chance to gain superpowers. But that would wait until after Europe had stabilized. Why me? Len asked with a frown, her fingers fidgeting. Why put me in charge? Because you have lived among the locals and seen their struggles, Enrique replied. You understand their needs better than I do from my ivory tower. We bear the responsibility for Rust Town's current state, so I don't expect that we will prove adequate at resolving its issues. And you have more than earned our trust, Len, Livia added with a bright smile, knowing it would reassure the genius. After facing so many trials together, the seer almost considered the underwater genius as a sister-in-law. You have done more for this place and its orphans than anyone else. You should get recognition for your efforts. Len cleared her throat, before offering a thankful nod. I shall prove worthy of that trust. I swear. For the people of Rust Town. The rest of the meeting was spent ironing out details about the new order of things, though Livia more or less zoned out. She had already predicted how things would unfold, and so spoke on autopilot. Still, she would rather take that boring, but constructive monotony over a bad surprise. Miss Auguste, a question before I leave, Leo Hargraves said, and Livia already predicted what he would say before he even opened his fiery mouth. How is he doing? Livia didn't need to see the future to understand who he was referencing. My father is. She cleared her throat. Alive. That's better than he deserves, Wyvern said harshly. He should be imprisoned in a cell at the bottom of the sea, like his lieutenants. My brother is already in a cell, Uncle Neptune replied with a scowl. One he will never escape. Livia glanced at a window on the villa's second floor. Her father was watching the scene through the glass, sitting in a wheelchair. Or at least his eyes gazed at the garden, while his mind wandered elsewhere. Sometimes, he apologized to Livia, to her mother, to the world. Mostly, he remained silent, or sobbed. Though the body endured, the proud, powerful warlord whom Livia had known all her life had perished in France. Only his ghost remained, trapped in a broken, indestructible body. Her father would rather have died than live like this, weak and catatonic. And, she knew he would get his wish in less than 2 years. His daughter had seen it across multiple possibilities. Janice Auguste had triumphed over many powerful foes, but in the end, he couldn't outrun cancer. In her sleep, Livia had dreamed that her father would set aside his criminal ways, seek repentance, and live the rest of his days in peace. It had been a sweet dream, and she had felt great sorrow upon waking up. Reality wasn't the ideal ending she had dreamed of, but it was an outcome that she was happy with nonetheless. Ryan had kept his promise and spared her father. She couldn't blame her boyfriend for fulfilling her wish in an unexpected way. Livia would care for her father for the little time he had left, and mourn for him afterward. But she wouldn't pity him. I see, Hargraves replied. He understood that Livia's father had paid for his crimes. In that case, I will take my leave too. I believe it is the first time that your carnival leaves a city with more members than it arrived with, Enrique noted. The living son nodded. I will take that as a good sign, and I know our new recruits will prove themselves. Adam Cat will do very well, and the panda has his heart in the right place. I'm still sad to see Felix go, Wyvern said. He was a good element. He was, Livia agreed, though not without some regrets of her own. Though she had moved on from their relationship, she still considered Felix a close friend. Someone with his resolve would have helped make New Rome a better place, but Livia understood that her ex-boyfriend would only truly feel happy on the road, fighting the evils of the world. Felix was born to become a wandering knight, not a nation builder. Enrique's group soon left after a few handshakes, leaving Livia alone with Len and her bodyguards. Fuck her, Vulcan said, once Wyvern was out of earshot. Fuck her better than you attitude. You will get to pick the name, Livia pointed out. Fuck you too, Nostradamus, the weapon builder replied. It's only because you warned me of Daddy Dearest's intentions that I haven't shot you yet. And because I'm a good boss too? Livia asked mirthfully, having given Vulcan complete autonomy and a large budget to pursue her intellectual interests. Don't push it. Vulcan put her drink aside. Would you even be okay with this? We have become a single government, Uncle Neptune said, while examining his copy of the European Accords. It doesn't matter which ministry you choose. We are all friends now, Livia pointed out with a smile. You disgust me, Vulcan replied before turning at Len. Hey, underdiver. Yes? Len asked with a frown. Let's go to my workshop afterward. I've got a great idea, but I'll need a smart assistant to improve it. Livia gave it a 50% chance that Vulcan and Wyvern would end up forming another duo, and 40 that they would create a new superhero organization. Beneath all the rage, bitterness, and her inferiority complex, a part of Vulcan had never truly given up on making the world a better place. Her pride would always come first, but now that Wyvern gave her the respect she felt that she deserved, the short-tempered genius would mellow out in time. Len's newfound idealism would have a good influence on her too, making Vulcan realize that even her weapon-making power could be used for constructive purposes. Humans needed to be together to lift each other up. It's really happening, Uncle Neptune said, as he slouched on his chair. Though he looked very much like Livia's father, the expression couldn't be more different. Uncle Neptune was amiable and cautious, with the look of a loving grandfather, while Dad had been a grim and implacable patriarch. I've prayed for this deal for years, and I still half expect it to blow up in our face. It won't, Livia reassured him. I always told your father that we should go legit, even when we were a normal mob, her uncle said. That way of life, it only ever ends up with a coffin or a cell, no matter how powerful you are. Now my brother is dead inside, and my sister imprisoned. I feel like my dreams and nightmares came true all at once. Livia knew her uncle was sorely tempted to raise Len's underwater prison from the depths and free her aunt. In a few possibilities, he almost did. But he never went through with these plans. Auntie doesn't want to talk to us, Livia said with regrets. Not since we refused to break her out. Can't blame her, her uncle replied with a sigh. But better jailed than dead. Do you think she will come around one day? Maybe, Livia admitted, though the possibilities she had seen were remote. Deep down, her aunt loved to kill. It would take her years of introspection before she could even begin to improve as a person. But not before many, many years. Neptune sighed. It all feels so bittersweet. Why did you go along with these reforms? Livia asked her uncle. She predicted a few answers, but she wanted to hear his thoughts from his own mouth. You never agreed with father, but you always went along with his wishes. Because I loved him, and I thought I could curb his worst ideas, Uncle Neptune replied with a shrug. The family that puts the family first will always prevail over the family that puts the whims of its members first. I love Janice, and my sister too, but you're our family's future, Livia. I think the path you chose is the only one where you'll live a long and happy life. Janice couldn't see it, but I do. We old people should make sure younger generations live a better life than our own, not repeat the same mistakes. Livia smiled and bowed. Thank you, Uncle, for supporting me in these difficult times. It's only been 2 weeks and a half since Janice fell, and it feels like years already, her uncle said with a shrug. There's still a lot of things to do ahead of us. Enemies to fight, roads to build. But you can count on me. Livia kissed him on the cheek, her uncle smiling in response. Before she left with Vulcan, Len wanted to ask the seer a question. Livia. You worry about Ryan, Livia guessed. I can't find him, and he doesn't answer on his phone. I'm worried. It's all right, Livia reassured her. Though her knight spent his nights with her, he usually wandered off in the morning to run errands. Or side quests as he called them. This time though, she had a pretty good intuition of where he had gone. I think I know where he is. It was May 31st, and the sun set on New Rome. Sitting at the edge of the promontory, Ryan thoughtfully gazed at the horizon. His legs dangled in the void, while his loyal Plymouth Fury waited behind him with his mask and hat on the hood. The wind brushed against his cashmere suit and his naked face, and his eyes wandered from one district to the next. Though it had changed, the city looked the same at first glance. All dazzling neon lights and towering skyscrapers, the glorious promise of a new future for mankind. He had spent the whole day marveling at its beauty, watching people living out their lives to the tune of his chronoradio. For a full day in a long, long time, Ryan had stopped to enjoy the moment and think. To ponder what he should do next. He heard a car stop behind him, and peeked over his shoulder. Livia stepped out of a Mercedes, wearing the same red dress as on their first date. The sunlight reflected on her platinum silver hair, and illuminated the smile on her face. How did you know I would be here? Ryan asked his girlfriend with a knowing grin. I thought you couldn't see me, Miss Auguste. I can't see you, Mr. Romano, she replied with a playful tone, but I still know how you think. I stopped at this promontory when I first came to New Rome, many loops ago, Ryan explained, as she walked to his side. I heard it was the best view of the city. You were lied to, she replied. Our house has the best sight. Our house, Ryan thought. 2 simple words, and yet they meant so much. I thought I would come back to this place after I completed my perfect run, Ryan admitted. I imagined that I would take one good look at the city, go back to my car, and then drive into the sunset towards new adventures. Maybe with Len in the back seat. She joined her hands together with a hint of anxiety. Will you leave? No, Ryan replied, to her relief. I was only ever comfortable on the road, mostly because that's all I ever knew, but that wasn't what I wanted. You came for Len. For a friend. I would have been happy if I could at least have one friend who could remember me. I spent centuries on a comedy roadshow, trying to fill the void with entertainment. Trying to stave off the loneliness. And now you're no longer alone, Livia said, as she knelt at his side. And you shall never be again. No. And though the universe is vast and full of wonders, what I want above everything is to spend time with those I love. I see that now. He chuckled. I guess I'm old enough to settle down. She giggled like a young maiden. You sound like my uncle, Ryan. I'm 860 years older than you, young woman. I'm a cradle robber. Will Grandpa Romano let me climb on his lap then? She asked him with a coy look. Sure, Papa Beaver will tell you a tale. Livia climbed on Ryan's lap, and he put his arms around her. You've gotten a little heavier. Livia looked cute when offended. Are you calling me fat? It's fine, you started a little too skinny, Ryan replied before kissing her on the neck. But you should stop overeating. I will, she said while resting her head against his shoulder. The stressful days are over now that we've hammered out a constitution. Things will slowly settle into a new, peaceful status quo. How peaceful. Though Ryan enjoyed the current peace, he wouldn't mind a little action in the future. As quiet as a republic of genomes can be, at least for the next few years. She rolled her shoulders. Afterward, who knows? I foresee dangerous threats, but whether or not these distant possibilities will materialize or not, we won't face them alone. About that, I want to talk about the weak part. Ryan looked into his girlfriend's eyes. He had thoughtfully considered something, and he wanted to broach the subject with her. Livia? Yes, Ryan, she asked, a little anxious. Will you marry me? She responded with a giggle, her face turning as red as a communist flag. Ryan, you already proposed to me. Yes, but I'm serious this time. She was the one Ryan wanted to share the rest of his life with. He could feel it, deep within his bones. Let's settle on a 2-year betrothal, all right, she said with a sheepish smile, as her face regained its original pale complexion. I love you, Ryan, but I think we're skipping a few intermediary steps. We just moved in together, for God's sake. Well, Ryan guessed it meant he had the time to prepare for the perfect honeymoon. And if we stay together for over 2 years? Because we will, and you know it. Her face beamed like the sun. Then I will gladly become Mrs. Romano. That was what Ryan had hoped to hear. He kissed his girlfriend on the cheek, making her blush. Hypothetically, how do you feel about having kids? He asked her. After we marry, of course. I thought you were afraid a child would inherit your powers. I was. But I talked to my elixir, and it will make sure it won't happen. Though our offspring will probably be even more overpowered than your dad. Livia thought about the proposal. I would love to have children one day, yes. And if they're half of me, you won't see them. Or maybe they'll blur your sight. Whether I can predict their actions or not, I would love them all the same. Livia looked at the twilight sun. Though I draw a blank about what we should call them. Maybe Iris, if we have a girl? Ryan suddenly felt a surge of divine inspiration course through his mind. If it's a boy, how about we call him Eugen? We are not calling our hypothetical future son after your spoiled cat, Ryan Romano. Livia exploded in laughter. You're such a gallant fool. And you love me for it. I do, she replied softly, before closing her eyes and moving her face closer to his. I love you, Ryan. As their lips met in a tender, gentle kiss, Ryan froze time and counted to 10. He wanted to immortalize this moment in his own way. The world turned violet, the shadow of an eldritch pyramid manifesting over New Rome. The purple reflection of a man running towards the future flickered into sight, joining with Ryan to fuse past and present into a new history. The last remnants of the black particles inside the violet genome vanished to make the save possible without destroying the space-time continuum. They escaped his body to ascend towards the heavens above, and as they did, visions filled the courier's mind. Wordless pictures as vivid as a lucid dream, fragments of time itself. They flashed one after another in quick succession, all of them showing people the courier had crossed paths with. He marveled as Len oversaw the cleaning up of Rust Town's atmosphere. The Metagang's cured members helped clean up the roads, all of them wearing vests with the words "Community Service" written on their back. Jerome looked happy with the mundane menial work, while Helen, Vladimir, and Bianca simply accepted it as temporary penance for old crimes. The likes of Mosquito, the Reptilian, and Rakshas's gremlins raised new houses without enthusiasm, but had no say in the matter. Rust Town's orphans played with Henriette in a new, green park built over the junkyard's crater. He felt satisfaction as the Olympians and their kind wasted away in an underwater prison far away from civilization. Venus raged in the cell she shared with her husband, while Mars looked through his oceanic window with remorseful acceptance. Pluto read a book with a scowl on her face, while Mortimer, Night Terror, Sparrow and Cancel played a board game in their shared prison. In his own cell, Hector Monada wrote letters asking his son to appeal the court's decisions. None would be opened. He watched Enrique Monada oversee a new team of superheroes, one dedicated to the public good. Wyvern smiled at him while offering a military salute, while Wardrobe gave Jamie, Lanka, and Ki-young their new dazzling uniforms. Soldiers stood at their side, making a vow to serve the Republic and its people instead of the almighty dollar. Vulcan overshadowed them all, wearing a new red power armor worthy of a hero of legends. He gazed at Alphonse Monada floating aimlessly in the void of space, looking at the Earth with heavy regrets. Maybe one day he would return to it a changed man. He also caught a brief vision of Ghoul's space cell, and the screaming immortal prisoner within it. He cheered as he saw Felix, Fortuna, and Shroud fight a vicious genome warlord as a team, no, a family. Sunshine and the Carnival took care of the mooks, though none kicked more ass than the panda among them. After they had won, Mr. Wave patted the man-bear in the back before offering him a black and white cashmere suit. He observed Alchemo tend to mentally ill patients in a Danish hospital, with the doll dressed as a nurse. A blonde woman which Ryan recognized as Matthias' mother exchanged words with a sentient toaster, while a mad priest received medical treatment. One day he would find his sanity back, and perhaps the road to redemption too. He cheered as Simon, Martine, and Monaco's survivors planted the French flag over the rusted ruins of the Eiffel Tower. Far away, a sphere of reinforced glass isolated a cursed city like a giant snow globe, preventing it from ensnaring anyone ever again. He watched Narcinia plant a garden in a greenhouse, one that would one day feed millions of people across Europe. His vision expanded to reveal a new shining city over the ruins of Sarajevo, its construction overseen by the architect herself. Mighty humanoid dinosaur workers carried the building material. He glanced at a strange rabbit running in a purple world, and a blob of darkness floating amidst the void. Both waiting for him beyond the veil of time, until the end of all things. This is the future you fought for. The Ultimate One's voice echoed across time and space, as it vanished from Ryan's sight. It may come to pass, or it may not. It is all up to you. Maybe the deity meant these visions to serve as a warning not to slack off, or as an encouragement to carry on. But whatever the case, Ryan loved what he saw. His save complete, time resumed at once, yet the kiss continued. Livia's lips tasted of strawberry, of love and passion. They tasted of home. And like all good things in this world, the kiss ended way too soon. The couple exchanged one shy glance, and then watched the sun vanish behind the horizon. Ryan Romano had completed his perfect run. And he was happy at last. The end.